Today's episode is brought to you by Leeward Elite. Leeward Elite is the solution to your technology and computer needs. Don't you deserve a better technology experience, a worry-free experience, a cost-effective experience? Leeward Elite members enjoy peace of mind, greater business productivity, and unlimited support. That's right, unlimited support. Contact a Leeward Elite concierge at leewardelite.com. That's leewardelite.com. And folks, I've gotten to know the Leeward Group, and not only do they provide outstanding IT solutions, they're also a very socially conscious group. They give back to their community in so many ways. I highly recommend contacting Leeward for any of your IT or consulting needs. I thank them for sponsoring and hope you enjoy today's episode.
Looking to buy, sell, or grow your business to position it for a sale? As the owner and managing partner of Sun Acquisitions, Domenic Rinaldi has personally been involved in over 300 M&A transactions. He has seen and done it all, consulting with large and small businesses across a broad range of industries. On M&A Unplugged, he'll interview buyers, sellers, and their advisors about their experiences scaling, selling, and acquiring businesses. On every episode, you will get key learnings, but most importantly, you will be better prepared for your own acquisition or sale. This is M&A Unplugged with your host, Domenic Rinaldi.
M&A Unplugged community, one of the constant challenges for any business owner is how to maintain consistent and profitable growth. Most owners either hit a plateau or they can't quite figure out how to get unstuck and start growing. Well, our guest today, Jon Dwoskin, is an expert at helping businesses grow big. In fact, very big. He has developed a proprietary system called the Think Big methodology. And the great thing about Jon is these are not just theoretical concepts or ideas. He has actually built and sold some of his own businesses to very substantial sizes using these concepts and tools. Jon has been featured in Forbes. He's an author, was named Crain's 40 Under 40 in Detroit, is a cancer survivor, and was named Alumnus of the Year by his alma mater, Eastern Michigan University, where he double majored. I could keep going with the list of achievements, but we only have 30 minutes. Jon, welcome to M&A Unplugged. I'm so happy to have you here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you having me on the show.
So Jon, the big thing hanging right there in front of us is you don't only say you help businesses grow big, you say very big.
Right. Well, my company name is the Jon Dwoskin Experience, and my tagline is grow your business big, very big. And that can mean something different to everybody. Sometimes people say, well, what if I don't want to get very big? Well, everybody is defined by themselves, but it really is, it's important to get unstuck and not complacent. And that's where I want people resonating the energy around that. And is because we can all grow our business big, but very big just makes us think a little bit for another second or two on where we're stuck and where we want to get unstuck and grow.
Yeah, Jon, our firm, we specialize in mergers and acquisitions and helping people, ultimately exit their businesses and realize, the full potential. I can't tell you how many times we have an owner come in and the first step in the process is we do an analysis and we show them what the value of the business is. And invariably, they're disappointed. And we're like, well, you had this business for 20, 30 years. One, you didn't check to see what the value was. And there's so many things you could have done. You work with owners day in and day out. Why don't owners, when faced with, the reality of hitting a plateau and being stuck, what keeps them from moving forward?
I think complacency is a dangerous drug, and it really, and we get really stuck in our day-to-day tornado sometimes, and we just become complacent because we're just quote unquote way too busy. When really, if you peel back the onion and you reverse engineer where the main issues are, there's a couple that I see that are very glaring when I go into companies, and I'm working with companies that are, they range from 2 people companies, 10 people, 50 people, 100 people, thousands, tens of thousands. And I don't say that to impress anyone, but just to impress upon the following. Typically, they all have a lot of the same problems. It's how they handle it that's completely different. And the problems are the following. They have the wrong people in the wrong seats. They are not constantly recruiting to get the best talent. They are not training their current talent to evolve their mindset because they don't subscribe or don't connect with the fact that the same level of consciousness that got that owner, that division head, that manager to where they are, that company, is not the same level of consciousness that's going to get them to the next step. And so they constantly have to be looking at their people and how they're training and how they're recruiting. Because if you want to be the best, you have to hire the best and train people to their potential so they can do the best every day when they come to work.
Wow, those are some great key takeaways right off the bat.
Can I add, I just want to add one thing on that real quickly.
Yeah.
Is if you keep toxic people around, right? Sometimes people are in the wrong seats and you move them and they do phenomenally well. And a lot of times people and companies keep toxic people, and toxic people is costing you, depending on the size of your company, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and sometimes millions of dollars. So it is, to me, every time I work with a company and we get rid of somebody who's toxic or a collection of people, they say to me within hours, if not days, I can't believe that person's gone. It doesn't even feel like they're gone. Life is so much better and everyone else has stepped up.
It's so funny. And you look back, I've been in those situations, having been in executive leadership for many, many years, most of my career. And you look back and those times when you did get rid of toxic people and you sit there and wonder, what took me so long to do this?
Mm-hmm.
So, Jon, you've done this for yourself, right? You've built a couple of businesses to substantial sizes. You sold them. What keys did you follow when you were building your own business? And you did these at a young age too, right?
Yeah, I did it at a young age. And I would say that the number one thing, not only in those businesses, but in other, careers that I've had and in my coaching business now, it is a couple fundamentals, which is one, show up every day. Number two, be consistent. And when I talk about being consistent, it's being consistent with the rituals, the habits. It is critical that you have a business plan and that you consistently work the plan. I see so many times, so many people just do not have a plan. I've always had a plan. I've always been very plan oriented, strategically oriented, but also nimble, where I can pivot and change. I'm a big believer that you should look at your business plan every morning and every night, or minimum 2 times a day, because it should be growing as you grow and as the market shifts, as the market evolves, et cetera, et cetera. I think the next thing is, if you want to separate yourself apart from everyone and anyone, then your follow-up should be impeccable. I can tell you, and I think anyone that's ever worked with me, my follow-up is impeccable. And it's so many people don't do what they say they're going to do and don't follow up. And if you're consistent and you work your plan and you have a plan and you show up every day and you follow up better than the next person, the next layer of that is you build and understand how to build your brand and build your brand as your personal brand, right? What is your personal guarantee that separates you from anybody else? And then, there's just many different avenues you can go. But to me, those are the bedrock fundamentals. And lastly, I'll say how quickly you can, I'm a big meditator, how quickly can you get back to your center where you respond and don't react?
Yeah, that's such a good piece of advice. Your business plan, I have a business plan. I look at it, but nowhere near every day. I mean, if I look at my business plan twice a year, so I'm guilty of this. I would imagine you find that quite a bit, or you may even find that people don't even have business plans.
Well, yeah, I mean, so many people don't have business plans. And so think about it. You're talking earlier in the conversation about someone who comes and says, wow, I can't believe my company is worth this. I just assumed it was worth more. I've been working my ass off. I've been hustling. I've been, growing business development, et cetera, all the, the dozens of things that they're saying. And so think about it. If just think about that person, if they were to reverse engineer and look at their business plan, which is a review of their goals, a review of their people, and can their people get them to their goals? Do the people within the company have their own business plan that they're working off of that's consistent and in alignment with the master business plan? And so as you begin to do that, you begin managing the business plan through the entire organization by everyone having their own business plan. And you're not micromanaging, but everybody's having the same quarterly goals, and we're moving to the same vision. instead of everybody kind of defining what they think the vision is and what they think their goals are and their interpretation of what they think it is, because that costs money. And you see it at the end of the day. What I'm saying is reverse engineer that, and just the simple act of, having a living business plan can make you a lot of money by the time they get to you.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So Jon, let's pivot a little bit. You developed this methodology called the Think Big methodology. Maybe talk about that and what it entails, and who's your primary client? What's a good client for you?
Sure. No, I appreciate you asking that. So my client, I'll start with that. My client is anybody who is successful and stuck and want to get to the next level. So I work with CEOs all over the country. I have some international clients as well. I work with leadership teams. I work with VPs of sales. I work with a lot of salespeople, a lot of managers. I do a lot of group training when it comes to salespeople and managers. And so it's very typical that I'll work with a company and work with, everybody I just mentioned, where I'm going and I'm working with just a ton of people within the company. Sometimes I'm just working with one of those groups within a company, depending on where they need me. But my clients are people who are aware and want to grow, and they know that they need somebody to brainstorm with, strategize with, and continually keep them thinking of new ideas to grow their business, and have an accountability partner to say, hey, do X, Y, and Z this week that we come up together. And the key is consistency. The key to coaching, like anything, is just consistency. And so people who want to grow their business, who want to grow their skill set, want to grow their best practices, those are my clients. Those are my clients. And we do face-to-face. We do Zoom conference calls. I'm on the phone with clients. There's no walls to my client. But the methodology that I use is, I call it the Think Big methodology. And the goal in the center is really to continually get unstuck. And just in quick summary, the way it starts is I work with my clients not only on forecasting and projecting and building a plan, but then reverse engineering all the nitty-gritty things that need to get done on a consistent basis and provide them the tools to make it happen. But in quick summary, it's working with clients to increase their awareness, right? Raise their consciousness, their frequency, their vibration of what they're doing and how they're doing it and why they're doing it. I then work with them to shift their mindset and start coming up with the beginning steps of taking action in a different way, defining the bedrocks of their business, their purpose, their values, their mission, their vision, and then clarifying that big picture with a business plan, and really incorporating a lot of how the culture is being affected, and reviewing and looking at all of the people within the organization and how to maximize and stimulate the most out of all of them. And then as we continue to build that, we build the playbook, we build the business plan, and then the key is the consistency. Because once you get through the cycle, or different elements through the cycle, you're going from alignment to action to adjustment back to alignment. So we always want to be moving back into alignment, because when we are in alignment as a company, we are able to take action quickly. And that's where you look at a company and say, God, why is that company or those group of people working so seamlessly? Well, because they have a plan, they're in alignment, and it makes it look easy. When you're out of alignment and adjustment, it's very difficult.
So Jon, so you have an owner or a management team that comes to you, they're stuck, and they decide, okay, we're going to adopt the Think Big methodology. How does that then reverberate through the organization? Will you work with them and their people? Are you giving them the tools so they can work with their people? Where is your involvement in all of that? And what are some of the challenges from, working with an owner of a business or a management team and getting them aligned, but then getting everybody else in the organization aligned?
Sure. Well, one of the best ways, depending on every company is different, but sometimes I'll come in and I'll do a 360 and I'll sit down with, not necessarily always, if the company's too big, everybody of the company, but if I'm working with a company of anywhere between, 2 and, sometimes 50, 60, 70 people, 75 people, let's just say anything under 100, I will come in and sit down and meet with everybody at the company. Because people will really open up to me. I can get amazing feedback and intel on where companies are stuck. We then take that 360 and create an action plan that entails a lot of coaching for different people within the organization. And I then work with those different people and leadership teams on how to roll things out. And the key is the consistency. You've got to be consistent. The biggest complaint I think most people have is, they bring people in to do a training or this or that. And then, that person goes away and everybody falls back into their old habits. And so to make this really stick within companies, there needs to be consistency. So most of the clients that I work with, I'm working with long-term. And even if after, we're working together a lot and they go into a maintenance program, there's still levels of accountability. So I think the biggest challenge is for companies to realize that this is, it's the long game. It's not a short game and a quick fix. I think another challenge is for people to be vulnerable. Owners, division heads, egos get in the way. And you have to be able to surrender and just be vulnerable to allow things to change and grow and just own where you maybe aren't the greatest and need to grow, and just be open to coaching and growth. And that's how you get into alignment. Everybody starts singing and walking into this, the same vision. You get all the bullshit out into the center of the room, and then you start healing by giving tools. Everybody understands where you're going, what the vision is, and then everybody is being heard because there's a lot of people being trained and coached to get into alignment with the master plan.
That's got to be so hard. I've worked with business owners for many, many, many years. And, most of them are A-type personalities. They wouldn't be business owners if they weren't, right? And imagine that getting people to really be vulnerable. They might, accept coaching, but to really be vulnerable where they're willing to allow their employees to see their weaknesses and that they need help has got to be a really big step for an owner of a business.
It is a big step. And, the bigger the ego, the bigger the step. It's amazing watching someone transform when they realize something that they think is being so vulnerable is accepted so widely. And then everybody else starts getting a little bit vulnerable. Again, this isn't, it's not necessarily a therapy kumbaya thing, but, sometimes, it's sometimes people just need to let go and stop trying to be right and stop trying to, just make it work. And sometimes you just gotta take your foot off the brake, surrender to the process, and let somebody else come in and help refacilitate. Because a lot of times lenses and perspectives get skewed. And so, for example, like when I'm coaching companies and going into companies, I can come in and I can provide a different perspective. And again, the same level of consciousness that got everyone where they are is not the same level of consciousness that's going to get them to where they want to be. So I'm in all different types of companies, of all different types of industries, all shapes and sizes. And so when somebody like me comes in, it doesn't have to be me, but comes in, people realize, wow, you're coming with experience of, what my track record is, but also having worked with all these different companies. So we will listen with different ears. We will see things through different eyes. And then it's the consistency and spoon feeding and reverse engineering things down to the simple to get things moving forward. I think one of the biggest challenges is companies and people just overcomplicate things. Things should be much more simpler than people make them out to be.
Amen. Amen. That is so true. And I would imagine the employees really sort of know intuitively what's not working in a company if they're stuck, right? I mean, the owner may not want to be vulnerable. They may not want to fess up to it, but the employees sort of know what's happening. And when you create that communication, which I'm sure is the big role that you play here, is you open up those doors of communication, it's a big aha moment for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the person who answers the phone knows more about that business than anybody, right? So if you take anything out of this, this talk that you and I are having, if you're the owner of a company and you want intel, go to the person who's answering the phone. They're the bartender of the whole organization, and they will enlighten you. And if you have a relationship with that person where you can protect that person's identity, you can learn so much about what's going on in your company.
I love that term, the bartender of the company.
Right.
Everybody walks by them, right?
Correct.
All the calls come through them. Everybody, chirps in their ear, right? I love that term. First time I've heard it. That's great.
Yeah. And, they're the person. I mean, I know when I've had people answering phones, if someone's rude to the person who answers the phone, I don't want to talk to them. Right. I mean, that's like someone who's mean to a server, but your employees know. And I think one of the challenges, sometimes owners of companies don't want to hear what they have to say. And, I know that sometimes maybe it's a lens or a perspective they don't want to hear, but all feedback is good feedback. And you just have to be able to dissect it and how it can then really help you grow your company. And it's all about the nuances, right? It's all about the little things and the small things and that you need to listen for. And a lot of times it's what's not being said. And a lot of times, we have to really, be connected to our people, and we're not.
So true. Nuances almost in every phase of life, right? You can teach people big processes and you can take from this point to that point, but it's the nuances between the points that really make all the difference in the world.
All the difference. All the difference. And they say like the stat is, if you look at tone and the words you say, the tone and the physiology, your words equate for 7%, your tone 38%, and physiology 55%. You're talking 93% based on tone and physiology. And so we really, as owners who are running cultures, right, and giving people a place to come and be their best and do their best, we need to pay attention to our tone, the way we walk, the way we speak to people, because we can say one thing and people interpret it, especially if we have power, completely the opposite way.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So, Jon, do you have a case study or a quick example, at a very high level that you could give to the M&A Unplugged podcast community where, you came in and a company was stuck and you got them unstuck and what happened to their growth as a company?
Yeah. I can point to a lot. I will point to one. I'll point to a couple in quick summary. One, I had a client, I've had many clients actually in this scenario where the company is not connected and is disgruntled to the CEO of the business. And coming in and doing a 360 and talking to everybody within the company to understand what's going on and realize that it's just a big miscommunication on so many different levels. I don't want to get into the content, but once the 360 is done and then people understand really what is below the surface and at the bedrock of why things are being misunderstood and fingers are being pointed at one person and in many times the wrong person, and they then begin to start to get an inner awareness with my coaching of their responsibility with what's going on. And everybody begins to raise their level of awareness and shift their mindset and raise their consciousness. And then we start putting a plan in place. And instead of pointing fingers, we see what we've seen. What is each person's specific and measurable role, responsibilities, and activity, and putting a plan in place. Then we see that when I'm working with these companies, tremendous growth, tremendous increase in communication, much more connection in communication. Many times when if we score it, where we start off, we're at a 4 out of 10. And when we leave, we're anywhere between a 9 and a 10.
Wow.
I just when we leave, because again, I think it's still the consistency is really important. I can point to many others where I come in and I'm working with an entire sales team who don't have a sales manager. And if you're running a business without a sales manager or a sales manager that doesn't know how to train their salespeople, or even if you have a sales manager managing too many salespeople or pulling too many directions, I come in and I work with salespeople who don't have a VP of sales or who do have a VP of sales and they need the extra coaching. I will come in and do a lot of sales training, group training, and then a lot of one-on-one training. I have a 15-minute power session that I do with a lot of salespeople every week. And we start seeing tremendous growth in proposals and bottom lines.
Yeah, that's great. So, Jon, you have a lot of resources that are available to business owners. You've written a book. You've got different ways to work with clients. Maybe just give us a recap of all of the services and maybe talk a little bit about your book. And I know you're available for speaking engagements. Give people a quick overview.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thanks so much for asking. I do ongoing coaching for executives and C-level executives and owners of companies and managers and salespeople. And if you go to my website, Jon Dwoskin, Dwoskin, you can see all the different coaching. I try to put it in different categories where, like I just described, I also can come in-house, where I go in-house for a couple hours a week or a chunk of hours a week with companies and act almost as their interim COO, work with all the teams and everybody within the organization to help. I call it my in-house accelerated program because it just gets things moving quickly. Sometimes I'll do that for, a long term, where I'll go in and I'll, be doing 7 hours a week. And sometimes it's just like a 1, 2, or 3 month accelerated jolt. And then I just go back to my normal kind of, monthly program with them. I do sprint coaching, which is 15 minutes a week or 30 minutes twice a month. I have an online program that's for salespeople that is accompanied with one-on-one time with me. I do a lot of sales and management training for groups of people. I do keynotes. The two of the most popular are, one is Think Like a CEO, and another one is on time management. And so I do a lot of training. And then my book, The Think Big Movement, is a parable business book. It's a business book told as a story. So I feel like you can retain the stories a little bit better. And then I've just got a lot of columns and blogs. I write for Forbes, and I have white papers. I have a few podcasts, Think Business, the Think Big Movement, 7-Minute Sales Minute, that are on my website, a lot of video tips. And and so a lot of resources for people to grow their business. I like the fact that I can provide a lot of content because I realize that there's some people in the world that I'll unfortunately never meet, but I can still help them touch and grow their business. And, if anybody ever wants to call me, I give everybody my cell phone number, 248-535-7796. I think my book helps a ton of people, so much so that you can either buy it on Amazon or you can go to my website, fill out a form, and I'll mail you a free copy.
That's great. And so other than your own book, I'm curious, is there a book that you've read, and it doesn't have to be a business book, but is there a book that you've read that really resonated with you, made an impact on your life that you recommend to other people oftentimes?
So there's so many books. I'm a huge reader. One of my favorite books that I have just finished reading is Dollars Flow Easily to Me, which is an incredible book about manifesting just so much to your life. Another book I just read was Psycho Cybernetics, an amazing book about mindset. Those were amazing. I love the book Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav. That was a life-changing book for me. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, another one of my all-time favorites. Good to Great, another one of my all-time favorites. I love the book I Can't Accept Not Trying by Michael Jordan, one of my all-time favorites. I love to read. One of the books I'm reading right now is by David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. Unbelievable. I'm listening to it, and it's kind of like a book on tape and a podcast with him. It's just, to me, reading is just, I love it. Principles by Ray Dalio, unbelievable. And I would say if you've never read Think and Grow Rich, it's a must.
Yeah, that is. I love that book. I love that
Yeah.
book. Well, Jon, it's really been such a pleasure. You gave our podcast community such great insights here. Jon, it's been such a pleasure having you on today. You've given the M&A Unplugged podcast such great insights. And for those of you who don't know, Jon has his own podcast called Think Business. If you haven't checked it out, please do. It's really a great podcast. He has some great guests. Jon, thanks again for being on. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much. And thanks to the M&A community.
So M&A Unplugged community, Jon brought up some really key points today. Just to recap, if you're an owner of a business or a management team and you're stuck, Jon can help get you unstuck. And, some of the key things are you need to be willing to be vulnerable. It starts there. If you're willing to be vulnerable and you're open to coaching, if you're open to a third party, helping you get unstuck, there's plenty of resources out there. Some of the other key things that Jon mentioned are, when you have the wrong people in the wrong seats, it can become very toxic. You should pay close attention to that. As an owner, you should always be recruiting, finding the next talent that you can bring into the company. And training and investing in your talent is so important. You have these people there that are touching your clients every day. Make sure that you're giving them the tools and the knowledge so they can perform their jobs. And then consistency. When you decide to be vulnerable and get unstuck, make sure that you bring a consistent approach to that. So I want to thank Jon again. All of today's information is available in the show notes. If you would like to learn more about the process of acquiring or selling a business, please visit our website at sunacquisitions.com or feel free to reach out to me at drinaldi@sunacquisitions.com. I look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of the M&A Unplugged podcast. And until then, please remember that scaling, acquiring, or selling a business takes time, preparation, and the proper knowledge.
Thank you for joining us today on M&A Unplugged. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and recommend it wherever you get your podcasts. If you want more great information on how to scale, acquire, or sell a business, please visit our website at sunacquisitions.com.